Thank you. You may be seated. So nearly at the end of Exodus, so I believe one more Exodus sermon after today, and then we'll, I believe, right? Yeah. And that'll be that'll be it. So we're nearly there. And today's text, I'm sure you're very familiar with, the golden calf. Sometimes we read of, especially those who surf on the internet, I'm assuming that's all of you, we read all sorts of crazy, outrageous stories online, and blog posts and whatever internet, or part of the internet where you are. And so a while ago, I read the story online, obviously, of this man, a young man, who was filing for divorce. So he's filing for divorce after 10 days of getting married. So that's pretty quick. So what happened to this young man? So obviously it was a couple. But this young couple, they were about to get married. Now all of a sudden, before the wedding, the bride's family got into a very difficult situation. Now they were in a very serious financial crisis. And out of the love for the bride, the groom, what did he do? He stepped in, and of course, he poured out his life savings that he's been saving up, for the marriage and afterwards. And he quietly paid off the bride's family debt, in essence. And everyone was obviously so shocked, and they were praising the young man for his, for such a noble thing that he did for his wife to be, and such a selfless act. And of course, everyone congratulated them, because they know what had happened, and it was just a beautiful union on their wedding day. And of course, straight after the wedding, they went to a honeymoon trip, just like everyone else. And the groom's heart. The groom was full of happiness, and then full of joyful that he could have helped his wife in such times of need. But only few days into the trip, in this honeymoon, he discovered the unthinkable. His wife has been unfaithful to him. When exactly? Actually, on that very honeymoon, she has cheated on him by sleeping with another man. Now, after all the sacrifices and the vows, the marriage vows, she had betrayed him. Can you imagine the shock? Of course, I'm sure you read very similar stories before as well. But can you imagine the shock and the grief and the heartbreak that this man is going through, or would have went through? And yet, this is exactly what's going on in today's passage today. God rescues Israel from slavery. As we've seen so far as we went through Exodus, He provides for them, even seals a covenant. It's like a marriage. Seals a marriage covenant with them at Mount Sinai, but almost immediately, or as if that young man was betrayed on that honeymoon, this God was betrayed by the people of Israel as they bowed down and worshipped the golden calf. Now, for those that need a bit of recap for our previous sermon, so what had happened is, so after Israel was rescued, they were exited out of Egypt, and God rescued them, God led them, and He made a covenant between them. So God and the people of Israel made a covenant, and then He ratified the covenant. By reading the vows, so the terms of the condition, that is like the vows of the covenant, made sacrificial offerings and sealed the covenant for good. So much like putting a wedding ring after a marriage, and much like a pronunciation of now here is husband and wife, it has now been the covenant is officially ratified. And after the covenant ratification ceremony, Moses, after he does that, he goes back up on the mountain by himself to now receive the tablets of stone. So now what is the tablet of stone? It's pretty much, if you think of it in terms of marriage, it's just like a marriage certificate. So marriage is now finished. Now he's going to go up to the mountain by himself and receive the tablets of stone, which has the laws inscribed on it. And that is like the marriage certificate, a physical testimony and a record of the solemn covenant that they just entered into. So Moses, now, he went up, but he was up there for quite some time. He was up in the mountain by himself, and the people were down at the camp beneath, at the bottom of the mountain, for 40 days and 40 nights. So 40 days, pretty much. Now, and because it's for some period, the Israelites, they began to grumble and lose patience. And we read in verse 1, it's on the slide, it says this: when the people saw Moses delayed to come down. Remember, he's up on the mountain, the people are down there. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, so rise up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses fella, the man who brought us up, out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So make us gods." So the second in command. So of course Moses is the first in command, and the second one is Aaron, and he was with the people. What did he do? What did Aaron do after hearing the request? He took gold from the people, essentially, and he fashioned it. He carved it into a golden calf. And he said to the people, these are your gods. This is your God who has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then he not only made the golden calf, he made an altar. And before it, he said, we're not going to celebrate to this Lord, Yahweh. Now, therefore, the Israelites, at the altar, did burnt offerings and peace offerings. And if you remember your previous sermons, these burnt offering and peace offerings, it's the exact same offering that they offered to the God of Israel when the covenant was ratified. That very offering is given, but now this time to a golden calf. And it says the people, so after doing that, it says the people sat down, ate, drank, and rose up to play. Now, just to be clear, again, Aaron and the people, they're not trying to abandon the Lord altogether by trying to worship this brand new God that they have just created. That's not what's happening. But notice what Aaron says in verse 5. It says, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And of course, if you look at the Hebrew, it says Yahweh. So the object of this worship, though there's a golden calf in front of them, the object of their worship is clear. It is actually the God of Israel, the very one that brought them out of the land of Egypt. So the intent was not to replace Yahweh with another deity, but their sin was to worship God in ways that is not prescribed. That is the essential sin in our text today. And of course, it says, not only they made the golden calf, it says they ate, drank, and played, right? They rose up to play. If you look at the Hebrew word for play, it's not just having fun or entertainment. It means to celebrate and to engage in uproarious festivities, often including drinking and sexual activity, including orgies. So that was what was happening in the camp of Israel as Moses was getting the marriage certificate between God and his people. In other words, this was a syncretized worship. Now that's a word that we don't hear often these days. So syncretism, it's the blending and the mixing of different religion. So remember, the object of the worship was God of Israel, but the way that they did it is not the way that God has prescribed. So it took the outward patterns of worship that belong to Yahweh alone, which is the burnt offering and the peace offering, and they combined them with pagan imagery like the calf, the golden calf, and pagan indulgences like drunken revelry and sexual immorality in order to give glory to God, because that's how they gave glory to pagan gods. Now, if you're a careful student of the Word, you might have already noticed the story of the idolatry that we read today, the syncretic worship. Our text is preceded by 7 whole chapters. So before our text, there's 7 chapters, big chapters, dedicated to instructions regarding authorized worship. How you need to worship God in the tabernacle. After that, follows our text today. So God had already revealed in painstaking ways, that in details, just how he was to be worshipped in his chosen place, through his chosen priest, in his chosen methods. They have now committed this very soon after the ratification. Also, the second of the 10 commandments, if you remember the second commandment, it's that people are not to make carved images for worship. And that was immediately broken. The fact that today's story comes after such a long instruction of how to worship God properly, it really highlights the grievous sin that Israel has made. So that's the sin that they have committed, but what's the result? What's the result of their sin? It's this, very simple, God's wrath. The wrath of God burned hot against Israel. Now it was about to consume them. That was what was happening. It was a betrayal of the highest order, just like how, just like an adultery at a honeymoon trip is a grievous sin. So why did Israel create a golden calf in the first place? So that's the sin that they did, but why did they create it in the first place? What was their motivation? It says, and it's this, it was to satisfy their spiritual uneasiness, and insecurity. If you read verse 1 of our text today, the very first verse, so this is what the people say to Aaron, the second in charge. It says this, make us gods, and then, now comes the purpose, make us gods who shall go before us. Who shall go before us. So that statement reveals the motivation that they wanted something visible to lead them and protect them. Something to lead us, to go before us, to lead us and to protect us. That's what they wanted. Because God always led through the mediator Moses. Now Moses was up on the mountain, and God was with Moses, and God was not with them in the camp, and they felt uneasy. God felt distant. They felt uneasy and insecure. Now, leading and protecting, that's essentially it. Leading and protecting is exactly what God has been doing this whole time. God had gone before them in a pillar of cloud every single day. In a visible pillar of cloud and fire, He led them. He parted the sea. He fed them with manna. He sheltered them from the enemies. So He's been leading and protecting them all this time. And this golden calf, it's nothing but a lifeless substitute, a very poor attempt to replace the real leadership and the protection of the living God that they have seen thus far. So this was their feeble attempt. This was Israel's feeble attempt to take control of the situation. So they're feeling insecure and uneasy. They're trying to take control of the situation by creating an idol for themselves in order to gain a sense of peace and security. So that's what they're trying to do by creating the golden calf. Now, of course, at the root of their sin, it is unbelief. It's unbelief because they did not trust God's promises or wait for His timing. That's what they didn't do that. So it was out of a sinful urge because to them, in the eyes of the people, God is too slow. He's not coming back quick enough. He's too slow. He's hidden, or He's beyond my control. Because I want Him here right now, comforting me. But He seems to be not here, so He's beyond my control. And therefore, I would make now an idol so that I will feel more in control. And of course, as Christians, we often do the very same thing. When we cannot sense God's leading and protection, instead of trusting in God, we turn to our substitutes. God has already made a promise to go before us, to lead us, and to protect us, as you well already know. But as soon as we subjectively feel like, even though He is always leading us, even though He's always protecting and watching over us, if we subjectively feel like He is not present with us, or at least He's not present with me in the exact way that I want, if that is not happening, we start making in our hearts our own golden calves. To get a sense of security, comfort. We carve them in our hearts whenever we rely on, so this is how we do it, whenever we rely on anything other than God to give us comfort, direction, and security in our lives. That is the very act of creating a golden calf in your very own heart. Now, for some people, it's money. So believing, so you feel a sense of insecurity or uneasiness, believing that a larger bank account is gonna protect you from the fear of the future, of uncertainty. Maybe you're financially struggling even, and you long for a sense of peace and security, but instead of relying upon God and trusting upon God, you convince yourself that, not God, more money is the solution. More money is the only thing that's gonna give me peace. For others, it's relationships or approval of people. So believing that if you're liked or loved, that you're noticed by others, that your soul, it's been empty, you've been feeling empty, but now through that, I will finally feel secure. But of course, God has promised that His love in Christ is the only thing. God is the only thing that can actually quench your thirst and your thirst for belongingness and desire to be loved. But instead of clinging onto Christ, we chase human approval and to satisfy them through a substitute. For other people, it's children and family. So they're pinning all their sense of security on how your kids turn out, whether they go to good colleges or good jobs, or whether your family looks nicely put together in the eyes of an outsider. That's your sense of security. And it's, of course, as Asians, especially as Asian parents, one of our biggest, I don't have a kid yet, but I'm assuming I'm an Asian too, one of our biggest idol can be our kids. It can turn out that way. We are culturally, especially more susceptible. But God never promised that your identity and your peace will come from your children or your family, but only in Him. Now remember, Israel, they were not outright rejecting God per se, but they wanted His guidance and protection, not in the way that has been prescribed by Him, but according to what I feel more comfortable, the way that I feel, which is the golden calf. So as Christians, it's not that we want to deny Jesus all of a sudden and go to Baal and worship Baal. It's not that we want to give, peace, comfort, and security. It's that we want to give our peace and comfort and security in the fashion that I prefer, in the method that I prefer, whether it's money, relationships, family, or whatever it is, something that is visible, because God feels too distant, and I don't think I can really feel Him. So something that's more visible in my eyes, something right in front of me. I don't feel secure with these. I don't feel secure with things I cannot see. So I need God to comfort me in the ways that I want. Just like for Israel, the people of Israel who have been enslaved in Egypt for such a long time, their most comfortable method of communicating with God is through an idol, a golden calf. And that is exactly what we do as we say, I want you to lead me and protect me in the way that I want, in the method that I desire. So let me ask you a question. Where are you looking at the moment in your life? If you are, where are you looking for peace, direction, or safety in this season of time? Is it in your bank account, your reputation, on your family or children, or your own plans? What golden calves are you carving in your heart because you feel like God is hidden and God seems invisible, too slow, and He's not approaching you, helping you, leading you, protecting you in the way that you desire? So as a consequence of the idol worship, the Israelites, they were about to now face God's anger. And this is what we read in verses 9 to 10. I'll read. It's in the slide. Reads as follows. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation out of you. So God was pretty much saying, all right, I'm sick of this corrupt people. I'm going to devour them all. I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to have a fresh start with you, Moses. You're going to repopulate. I'm going to have a fresh start. I'll make a great nation out of you, not them, is what God is saying. Of course, one might ask the question, was God really going to wipe out? Was He really going to wipe out if Moses did not intervene? If Moses never prayed, if Moses never interceded for the people, would God have wiped out the Israel and we will not have Israel today? Is that what's going on? That is a common misinterpretation, of course. The common misinterpretation here is to think that God somehow he lost his temper, and that his patience has snapped, and in a burst of anger now, Moses and he was going to destroy them, and Moses was there to save the day. And Moses was the one, whoa, calm yourself down, God. And he brought him back to his senses, is of course the wrong misinterpretation. What God was doing here is God was purposely drawing Moses into the very role of a mediator, so that he can fill in that role of a mediator. Because God, by declaring judgment upon the people, God gives Moses the opportunity to stand in the gap and plead on behalf. When God said to Moses, so this is what he said, let me alone. So in other translations, leave me alone. Let me alone, that my wrath will burn hot. And of course, we would have already known, he didn't actually need to say that to Moses. He didn't need to say, hey, leave me alone, I'm going to do this. Didn't need to say that. Could have just punished them. Could have just killed them all on the spot. Swiftly exercised judgment upon Israel without getting Moses involved. But the reason why he said that, he purposely wanted to draw Moses and get him involved for that opportunity for him to intercede on behalf of his people. Now, in Moses' intercession, notice carefully, this is not how he intercedes. He doesn't say, Lord, save them for my sake. But look at me, oh God, and for my sake would you save them? Is not what he says. Or does he say, Lord, look at these poor, pitiful people, how pitiful they are. Surely they deserve mercy. And on the grounds of the people, I pray, Lord, save them. Don't relent your anger. Is not how Moses prays. So his intercession is not grounded upon himself or Israel. Instead, his focus, if you read his intercession, his focus is on one thing, God's glory. God's glory. That your name will be preserved and honored among the nations. That your reputation as the faithful covenant-keeping God, that it will not be brought into question, is the ground for his intercession. Now, if you remember the three things that Moses mentioned in the intercession, if you look at it, it's quite a big portion, so I'm not reading it, but there's pretty much three things that he's grounding himself on. First one, you made a covenant with them. You made a covenant with them. Second, what will the Egyptians say? That you are powerful enough to bring them out, but you are not powerful enough to keep them through. They will mock your name, is the second reason. And the third one, you promised, not just to us, of course you made a covenant promise to us, but you made a covenant promise to our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. You said you will make their descendants as numerous as the sons. Lord, your name is at stake. Your glory is at stake. For your glory's sake, for your name's sake, I pray that you would deliver them, that you would forgive them, is what Moses says. Now, God relented from his judgment, not for, again, Israel's part, but they were saved through a mediation. God provided Moses to stand in the breach, and through this intercessory work, the people were now spared. And likewise, God has also provided a mediator for us. As we have already heard for the last few sermons, a better, a superior mediator, Jesus Christ our Lord, who not only intercedes in the way that he is the way to salvation, but even in this very moment now, the moment that you're taking in breath right now, he is sitting on the right hand of God, by the throne of God, interceding for you, for your salvation. He's the interceder, he's the mediator of the new covenant. And just like Israel, Israel committed this sin after they became God's people, and us, even after we become Christians, we so quickly turn to our idols for comfort, security, instead of turning to God, even though we are already a saved people. Hebrews 7:25, it says this, that Christ always lives at this moment to make an intercession for us. So what does that mean? That it means every time we fail, I don't know about you, but that's me. Every time that you fail, every time that you run to your idols, and indeed, as John Calvin said, our hearts it's an idol factory. You just let it be. You let it run wild. It's going to stamp out idols like there's no tomorrow. Even though that's happening in your life, every time our spiritual uneasiness pushes us towards the substitutes, the idols, Christ at this moment is by the Father's side praying, Father, save them. Keep them for your glory's sake. And I know they messed up again. Yep, they're messing up again right now. They're turning to idols. But I have paid the price. Remember that, Father. I have paid the price. Now let your name be glorified through their salvation. I pray that you would carry them through, is how he is praying. And this is the good news of the gospel. Not just your salvation, of course your salvation as well, but the continuation of your salvation, it does not rest upon you and your great works, but it rests upon the unshakable commitment of God for his own name and in his own glory. The assurance of your salvation, if you have an assurance of salvation, let's just say, sir, do you have an assurance of salvation that if you die right now that you would go to heaven, to God? Do you have that? And it should not be in your ability to cling to God, but it should be in God's determination to magnify his own name by saving and keeping you through his Son. So my question to you is this: where should we put our confidence? If we are to have confidence in our faith, confidence, yes, I am indeed a child of God. I am indeed saved. I am indeed being saved, made transformed, glorified into his image. Where should our confidence come from? It should not be from how well you're doing, even though you might be doing very well, and that might be giving you comfort. Ultimately, it should not rest upon how well I am doing, because I tell you, if you're exactly like me, you're exactly also like the people of Israel that would turn away, moments away. You would get grace here, and you would have the audacity straight after you leave church to turn away from God, because that's me, and that's Israel, and that is all of us. And our assurance of salvation, therefore, is not upon our performance. It's not to be in ourselves. It's not in our ability to turn away from idols and only look at Christ, because we will turn away. But it is upon God's motivation for his glory. That is your assurance. It's not in your spiritual awesomeness. It is on God's glory. So instead, we put all our confidence, if you are to have any confidence in yourself and in your faith, it's not in yourself. Please do not put it on yourself. It will not last long. But it should be in Christ, our mediator, who always lives to intercede for us, because he has tied our salvation to his glory. And therefore, like Moses prayed, and just like how Christ prays for us now, we also ought to pray. I pray that this is your prayer, that you would pray like this: Lord, for your name's sake, for your glory's sake, for your name's sake, deliver me from evil. Help me to walk in righteousness for your sake. Continue your work of salvation in me, and help me turn away from idols. I pray that that would be your prayer. If God has tied his own glory to your salvation, I pray that you don't settle for lesser glories. Live in such a way that your life displays the glory of the God who saved you. And I guess my last word is we should not worship God syncretically, mixing God with idol worship as Israel did. Syncretism takes the form of, as I said before, mixing the devotion to God with the idols of the world. And we say, yes, of course we say, yes, I worship Jesus with our mouth. We all say that, I'm sure, as Christians. But then if we look at the reality of our lives, we say that with our mouth, but we lean on money. We find security in money, approval, success, and other things, and other sources for a sense of peace and security. I pray that let your prayer this week, if you are to pray, of course you ought to pray. I pray that your prayer this week will be, Lord, not for your name's sake, for your glory's sake, turn my heart from idols. Let me not try to gain a sense of security from other things, but help me to fix my eyes upon you and only in you be fulfilled and be satisfied. I want us to bow our heads as the praise team comes up.